Research shows that participants in clinical trials often don't reflect the populations in which treatments are needed or will be used. For example, participants in heart failure trials are typically 20 years younger than those who are treated by services. Patients in cancer trials lack the comorbidity typically seen in clinical practice, and patients in diabetes trials often lack the ethnic diversity typically seen in patients in reality. Who takes part in trials matters because it affects how widely applicable the research findings are. When participants in clinical trials don't match the populations in which treatments will be used, it can lead to problems like treatment benefits and harms that we see in trials not translating to real-world patients. Or it could lead to the research missing important findings that are specific to different populations. It also matters because leaving groups out of clinical trials is a form of discrimination. If we want a fair health system now and in the future, it's important we take action on the barriers that prevent some groups being represented in clinical trials. A group of academics, researchers, professionals and representatives from underserved groups at the NIHR Clinical Research Network has been looking at this issue. Their work is called the Include Project. They found that when it comes to underrepresentation, the patterns of who is left out vary across different places, types of study and the area of health that the research applies to, and there are many groups that might be underserved. The group came up with the term underserved to reflect the fact that if we want more and different people to take part in research, we have to serve people better in how we design and deliver research. The Include project also found that while there isn't a simple list of underserved groups, groups that tend to be underserved on different studies share some common barriers when it comes to taking part in clinical trials. For example, logistical barriers like a lack of transport and how far people have to travel to take part in a study, or information about a study not being available in the right language. It could be that the criteria for who can take part in studies excludes more people than need to be. For example, older people are often left out as many studies exclude over 65s. It can be that a group isn't very engaged with health services, so misses chances to take part in research, or that individuals are not aware of clinical trial opportunities. Or it could be that the research isn't addressing questions that feel important to participants, so people don't feel motivated to take part. Some of these strategies the Include project suggests are promoting public awareness of what clinical trials are and why they matter, building relationships between research teams, clinical teams and community representatives with underserved groups, embedding research in every health and social care environment, from hospitals to care homes to communities, so that as many different groups as possible can participate in research, and involving patients more throughout the research process to help us design and deliver research in the most accessible and inclusive ways. These are strategies that everyone involved in clinical research can support, from research teams and clinical staff to public engagement and communication teams.